and then we'll move you through the sort of the flavour profiles and textures. So you're starting off with a lowland whiskey from Auchentoshan. So I don't know how much anyone knows about Auchentoshan, but it was probably one of the first ones to be triple distilled Scottish whiskies. So it's a triple distilled, so, you know, and some people would say that's similar to an Irish whiskey, but it's triple distilled Scottish whiskey. It's 12 years old.
Yep.
12 years old. So it's 12 years aged in a bourbon cask. Which is nice, light starter, wet your palate. The drink that you had there, the cocktail, it's just a whiskey highball, just to get your palate going. But dig in.
Yeah.
There you are. Now, these glasses, everything about this room, the way it's been designed, I hope is in order to...
One more? No. All good?
Are we sure? Yeah. Has everyone got one?
Everybody got? Yep. Everybody got?
One more? Yeah. So the whole purpose of this room, I believe, is to amplify the experience of drinking whiskey as much as possible. So everything from the whiskey to the glasses. So these glasses are, I like them now. I think they're good nosing glasses. Got that tight nose on the top.
Is that Capita?
Yeah, and it's I just call them tulip, but yeah, it is Capita glass. Stemmed, so you're not warming it up with your hand. I mean, even the marble. I mean, it's not marble, it's lighter, but I mean stone top. Same as cheese. Keep the whiskey at cellar temperature. The water in this wee jug is all from Slemish Mountain, near you.
Oh, was it? Did Noel give you some water, didn't he?
Yes, he did. The first person to come in here, he knows their name. I might need you as a translator the next time I chat to
no
him.
problem. I know Noel. I know Noel the best.
Is that Flemish spring water?
Yeah. So it's I say it's from St. Patrick's Well.
This just for context. The guy who owns the Slemish Spring is a guy called Noel Robinson. And years ago, Noel had a whiskey brand that he never actually got to market. And he got some Cooley juice, and what he wanted to do was make St. Patrick's whiskey, made with the water from the well at Slemish, which St. Patrick would have drunk. Right? So, what he did was, they wouldn't let him do it in terms of the actual production. So he basically had to put some Slemish spring water to cut it. It never reached the market, and nobody really knows the story. But I actually have, I think, 3 bottles of it at home now. But it's a really, really rare thing, and he's a really, really nice guy. And at one point he was talking about getting a distillery up and running. He did mention about this, but he phoned me one day because he was talking to some buyer from the States. And the buyer from the States says, "Oh, can you get me whiskey?" He says, "Oh, I'll try." So he rung me. And I says, "Dead on. Yep. What is it he's looking?" He wants 10,000 bottles of 12-year-old Irish whiskey every month. I was like, no, sorry. there probably isn't that anywhere in Ireland. Yeah, it was Costco that were looking the stuff. So yeah, no. You're a different market, guys, different market.
Yeah, but class, but I mean the St. Patrick's whiskey, like they still own the rights.
No, he doesn't.
Does he not? He lost that?
He thinks he does, but there's actually a brand out there now.
Is there?
Yeah,
Fair
but
enough.
no, in terms of the idea, I think it was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, it was.
I mentioned this spring.
Yeah.
One of the St. Patrick's distillers that didn't have the distillery.
Yeah, that's the other. That's the ones who have it now. They've registered it. Yeah.
He's still selling the water then?
Oh no, the water's still on the go. Yeah, I'm still.
He doesn't do it individually. He does it for office blocks, offices.
Yeah,
now.
he does it for water coolers and
So
stuff.
you used to buy for the shop?
Yeah.
You were about, what is he?
No, it must be probably 65, 70.
Yeah, and it's him and his son.
Yeah.
Have the place.
There's 2 sons.
2 sons. It's one of them that I've met. Can't remember his name. Met the.
I remember the time I went up there and they had the spring and it was just gushing out over the. I'm going down the.
Yeah.
Going down the lane when I go. There's another £5. Listen, not fair.
Yeah.
It was just gushing down the lane.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's unreal. It's unreal. Right, back to the whiskey.
So I don't know what everyone thinks of that. So again, you've been at a whiskey tasting already here, but yeah, so obviously smell it, look at it. So as I say, 100% of the color, it's very light, 12-year-old whiskey, and it's very, very delicate color on the whiskey. It's just, that's the way it was. It's triple distilled, Auchentoshan. It's nice. I mean, what does everyone think? Like it?
It needs, I think it needs a touch of water.
Cut. It needs a cut.
Yeah, I need a wee bit as well. That's lovely.
I don't get mad with you.
Try it.
I'll put
I
your
was just
water
going
in.
to say I don't want that.
Aye, I'll put my water on it. Fucking hell. Correct.
No, I have a friend that drinks his Coke and whiskey, and Lidl's do a Scotch whiskey at about £13, and that's what I buy for him.
Oh, God. See, I have a friend. Everybody needs a friend like Davy Graham. Davy Graham, I call him the exorcist, because he comes and makes all my spirits disappear. So what he gets is all the rubbish that I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And he comes, puts ginger ale in it, and he will drink any god's amount of it. It's
Lovely,
rubbish.
yeah.
I don't have proper 12 in my house, son. I wouldn't.
Ask for it if I'm
I wouldn't besmirch my front door with proper 12.
My bottles from my sister-in-law's partner at the time. They're no longer together. I assume it's because of Harry.
Probably. That touch of water.
Yeah, it opens it up. Yeah, so I'll tell you, so this comes from the Single Cask Company. So they're actually a splinter company from SMWS, but they're based in Dufftown. They have, I think, 4,000 casks in their warehouse. And I mean, that's, so in terms of what makes an independent bottler good and bad is its numbers. You need a lot of casks to be good at independent bottling. So in terms of the tree of whiskey, at the absolute lowest level, you'd have your white label stuff, which comes in like ISO tubs and like IBCs and stuff like that, which, you know, they send out to markets. The majority of whiskey in the world that's sold is this stuff. And then it goes out to the markets, and then they bottle it in the market. And then you have blends above that, and then you have single malt.
Yeah.
And the thing with single cask whiskies, it's not actually about what you choose, it's about what you reject. The best independent bottlers of cask whiskey in the world are the ones that reject the most. So for example, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society reject about 70% of the casks that they have access to. And I mean, they get cream of the crop because they're NWS, been around since 1983, so they get pick of the litter in terms of quality. The Single Cask Company is another company. You know, they've got a lot of casks to choose from, and they reject a lot of casks. So that, you know, because they're newer, they'd probably be rejecting about 90% of the stuff that they already own. So it's only the best quality stuff that's getting inside these bottles. Now the other 90 or 70% of the stuff that they are rejecting can go off and be in single malts, or it can be in blends, or it can be in white label, you know, depending on how good it is. But in terms of what you want with single cask whiskey is, it's the best of the best. So just when somebody says something single cask doesn't mean it is good. Like a vintage, it could be a bad single cask. But so you're not, when you buy single cask whiskey, what you're buying into is not the single cask thing, or even to the distillery. It's the independent bottler. So when you go to people like SMWS, or Delphi, or, you know, these people, it's because they've got the choice. They've got a good selection process. So it's very much down to the people. So this comes from Auchentoshan, and now, I mean, I'd say this is pretty, like, you could identify that as being an Auchentoshan. It's got a lot of the characteristics, which would be similar in here, but there's a lot of the whiskies you taste in here that might be from a distillery that you know of, but it'll taste nothing like that particular distillery. Like, particularly when you're getting into things like Highland Parks or Springbanks or something like that, you pick them up and it won't taste necessarily like anything you've ever tasted from that distillery before. And that's just simply because it's one cask from that distillery. And the majority, 160 single malt distilleries in Scotland, majority of what they produce in Scotland doesn't go in their own labels. Like, they don't actually bottle it under their own label, and that's the beauty of Scotland. I go back to saying I am very proud of Ireland, but I mean, like in Scotland, it's just amazing. It's 160 single malt distilleries, and they all work cooperatively with each other and have done since 1823. And that's the reason why they have the diversity in Scotland. Because if you're working in a cooperative, you don't make the same stuff as your neighbour. Everyone does something different. So you have 160 single malt distilleries, and every single one of them produces its own unique style, and that's what makes the diversity in Scotland exist. So.
Are we not catching up?
No.
And not only are we not, we never will at this
Never.
rate, because we don't have that approach. We don't. It's all centralised in Ireland. I mean, that goes back to John Teeling's.
Because we're no retard and
No.
these guys owning the big ones.
No, not really. I put it in context. Now, I was talking to Jim and the friend at hand today about this. When someone came in, a tour guide outside of the friend at hand said, he was standing outside. This is what we do sometimes in the friend. We just stand outside when they're not busy. But there was a tour guide shouted over, isn't it correct that Irish whiskey now outsells Scotch? And he just started laughing. And he said, you do know that there's distilleries in Scotland that produce more than the entire Irish whiskey industry combined. And the idea that Ireland is going to overtake Scotland any time in living, anybody's lifetime, it's a nonsense.
Yeah.
Does Johnny Walker sell?
Well, Johnny Walker sells about 22 million cases a year.
Yeah, I can only imagine, which is again more than all of
Ireland's
whiskey.
combined,
Yeah.
and that's one brand. And the idea that Scotland would just allow Ireland to just, I mean, it's a $9 billion export industry. That's I'm reading that from a report in America last week. In terms of food and drink exports for the UK, a quarter of all of that's Scotch whisky. I mean, it's enormous. It's absolutely behemoth. And Ireland's got years to catch up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising the Irish whisky industry by any stretch of the imagination, because we started off 30 years ago from pretty much nothing. I mean, 30 years ago, there was no Irish whisky industry. People think in their head that there was, but Bushmills were probably producing for 5 months of the year. And you had Middleton, and then John Teeling came along. And the genius of John Teeling was he allowed people, he gave spirit to people to set up brands. So I could set up a brand and he would supply me my whiskey. Right? I didn't have to have a distillery. And that was the genius point, and that's really the genesis of the Irish whiskey industry today, because people started to piggyback on that, and you had what I call the Lazarus brands. These brands that died years ago, but you still see pub advertising for it, and people went, I'll see that one, register it, happy days, and it rose up with the ground, and I can produce a whiskey. But McConnell's are different because they've invested millions in that.
Yes.
But there was loads of guys years ago that had these brands that basically it was a label and the spirit wasn't all that important.
I'm sure it happens every day of the week.
It happens every day of the week now, and that's
Great,
it.
Great Northern sell to
Tell anybody.
Tom, Dick and Harry.
And Cooley,
You look at the TTB in America.
Yeah.
There's a new brand every
well,
day.
Cooley were doing this. That's why you had the Podreen Mare in Brisbane. That's why Noel had Slimish, right? He had St Patrick's, but Cooley withdrew from that whenever the Beam Suntory took over. So Teeling's doing that now. But in terms of Ireland competing with Scotland at the minute,
You wouldn't want to see Irish whiskey selling its soul for volume.
No.
Keep the quality,
but
sell that there.
But there is a key point. Lots of people need to keep the lights on. Lots of people need to keep paying wages. Lots of people, and it's okay having this high moral high ground. But when it all comes to it, when it comes down, you need to keep the lights on. And you run a business. If somebody said to you, tell you what, I'll make you a fortune selling this one brand going forward, and I'll cut you in and you'll do this and we'll make a fortune. You'll probably go, look at it, look at the figures and go, that's okay, I will. But if somebody said to you, I tell you what, we'll do it and we'll keep it going until some of the big boys buy us out. Hang on, that's a risky strategy. And there's quite a few guys, as Sam will back me up on this, quite a few guys, their business models are probably not not the greatest, to be honest. But Scotland, you know yourself, Sam. You approach a distillery in Scotland and say, I want to do this, pretty much always, no problem, because they're open to all that, because they have the confidence. Ireland is a slightly different market. If you go and approach somebody and say, I want to do something different, I want to do something, what's in it for me? Because it's baby steps. Scotland, they're confident and able to do whatever, you know.
You seen it there in the video though, like it's false advertising to tourists to come in because it's saying in the video of McConnell's, we're going to now outsell, we're outsell.
That's in America. That's just one market.
That's one market,
But
and
it's people coming in that listening to that. And it's going to be the tourist that doesn't actually know whiskey that's looking at that going.
Is that true? You know,
No. So just to simply put it, there's one distillery in Scotland called Cameron Brigg, and they produce 136 million litres a year of spirits. And Girvan, which is number 2, produces 115 million litres a year. I mean, the biggest, even Middleton alone, I think Middleton would max out at about 50. And I think, and they're way bigger than everybody else. Then the next one below them would produce about 20. So in terms of scale, and that Cameron Brigg, that's the basis for everything that they do. I mean, I met somebody, we were chatting to the guys from Girvan the other day, and they were saying that they have something like 1.4 million casks in their just in their warehouses.
I am a truck driver. I drive through. That's where they make Smirnoff Ice, by the way.
Yeah.
Gordon's Gin is just down the road.
Yeah.
I drive through it, and the donnages, the warehouses, it's unbelievable. I've asked them how many casks in there. 1.5 million.
It's amazing. And so, and they're thinking, and the way they look at it is, the plan for any of these industries is they have to be thinking 10 years speculatively. So they have to produce whiskey now on the basis that if the industry continues to grow the rate it's growing right now for 10 years, how much spirit do they have to have left? So I mean, back in 15 years ago, Glenmorangie, who I used to work for, they were the biggest land removal site in Europe back then, just for the warehouses that they were building. And that's just Glenmorangie. So just to go, there's no, it annoys me even when, it annoys me, but when people say, Irish whiskey, it's a stupid
comparison.
It's a stupid goal. It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't reflect the industry. It wouldn't reflect our industry. At the moment, Ireland's the only whiskey producing country in the world, historical whiskey, that doesn't have to rely on anyone else for barley. We produce enough barley in our own country. We don't have to import any barley. That's a good sales point. I think that's a great sales point. And we have particularly good barley in this country. That's nice. We have smaller distilleries. The other issue is you're even talking about and I agree with you totally about being risk averse, because most of these producers, if you have a centralized approach, the idea is that every drop of liquid that you're producing that's going into a cask is going to be good enough to get into your bottle, which is, again, that's not a good. In Scotland, they don't think like that. They think any given distillery will produce good quality stuff and middling stuff and not such good quality stuff, and then that goes into a network where so Girvan, of those 1.4 million casks, not all of them are amazing, and most of them aren't Girvan, but it's become it's a point. It's actually most of the casks probably that they have are probably duffers that other distilleries didn't want, so they can put them there so that they can go into IBCs and go off and be in white label whiskies and stuff like that. That's an industry.
William Grant's?
Yeah, that's William Grant's. So that's an industry that you can. So that's a whole, and there's just that loads of layers. So to answer your question, will Irish not currently, because if you're going in thinking every drop of liquid that you're going to produce is good enough to get into a single cask, which at the moment Irish kind of are thinking like that, then you're onto a loser. It's just it won't work.
I think we all probably know that, but the point is that you have a tourist attraction advertising that it's going to be, and I think that's maybe why they have to maybe look at that.
No, absolutely. But I think there's so much amazing stuff happening. The best whiskies I've ever tasted have been Irish whiskies. Ever tasted have been Irish whiskies.
The thing about it is McConnell's, when they're doing that video, are basically quoting the Irish Whiskey Association.
Yeah.
And that's who says this. And I know lots of people in Irish whiskey who are very critical of that statement, because it's basically not. I mean, the idea that you're going to overtake, you don't have enough volume to overtake it. Never mind in terms of a business goal. I mean, it's very hard to sell stuff you don't have. I know there's guys out there selling casks of stuff that they don't have, but it's very hard to sell something in volume when you don't actually have the volume or the capacity to do it.
Well, it could be that there's a percentage increase wise.
Oh yes, but it's very.
There's definitely.
When you start from nothing, it's very easy to have 100% increase and then say, oh, we'll just extrapolate that over the next 50 years. If I sell one cask and then next year I sell two, I have 100% increase. So we'll extrapolate that over 30 years and I'm the biggest producer in the world. I'm not
very specific. Ireland sells the most single pot still whiskey in the world.
There you go. Exactly. But I mean, the thing is, it shouldn't be a competition. I work for lots of tour companies, and I prostitute myself to anybody. That's anybody that pays me. I tried prostitution as a real goal, but I couldn't give it away, never mind sell it, right? Anyway, so this girl phoned me up, and this is a big tour company. And she phoned me up and she says, look, tell me this, what's the best whiskey visit in Belfast? Is it, or in Dublin, sorry, is it Bow Street or Teeling? And I said, well, Teeling, because Bow Street don't actually distill anything. It's a nice spot, it's a nice enough tour, but you want it to be a distillery. Fair enough. And the guy who was doing the tour found out they were from Scotland. And she said suddenly he made it all about a competition between Ireland and Scotland. And this is a girl that knows her stuff about whiskey. I mean, Jackie knows her stuff about whiskey. And she turned around to him and said, you know, son, it's not a competition. You've got a very nice young whiskey coming out there, but don't forget, I can go and buy a 40-year-old spirit in Scotland, no problem. You've a long way to come.
Yeah.
And she wasn't being cheeky about it, but he made it like a sort of, like the Six Nations rugby. I mean, it's ridiculous to even contemplate the thing, you know? And it shouldn't be like that. I mean, Scotland, Jim and the friend at hand points this out. He says, you look around Ireland and there's Belfast Whisky Club, there's all these whisky clubs around Ireland. There's not really the same thing in Scotland. Because a lot of guys in Scotland aren't all that restricted. They're quite happy to try Irish whiskey. They're quite happy to try Kavalan from Thailand and so on and so forth. And I think it really comes from that confidence in having that as a sort of, this is where we are. And they are super at it. I mean, they really are. I mean, you can have the spirit.
100%. I mean, and I've probably said this to you before, like, just to kind of go backtrack on what I've already been saying, but like, I think Bushmills have the best whiskey of any distillery in the world, like in their warehouses. Like, I don't think anyone touches them. I remember years ago, people used to talk about Canada Club before Suntory bought them and said, oh, Canada Club's got just the most amazing warehouses. And people like in the whiskey world were all going nuts about Suntory. And Suntory, right enough, came in and started releasing all these really cool Canada Club. And then we're sitting like with a smirk on our face in Ireland thinking to ourselves, Bushmills up the road has mind-bogglingly good. And all the, like, I remember trying, so I had been working for Glenmorangie, or for like S&B Glenmorangie at the time. And I went to the whiskey show years ago and Stephen Teeling was there with their then 21-year-old, which was old Bushmills stock, the double distilled Bushmills stock. And I tasted that day, and I said that day I would quit my job in Glenmorangie right now if you give me a job. And then he had to go back and chat to Jack. And then they did give me a job. And I was their like first employee, because I tasted that day when I tried that 21-year-old, and I thought, that's the future. That's one of the best whiskeys I've ever tasted, Scotch or Irish. It's just incredible. But and that was that old Bushmill stuff. Absolutely amazing. Irish whiskey can be, but again, for me, it's all about having a diversity, and that's what independent bottling's about. So I always tell a story about when I first started in the society. There was an Ardmore, which is number 66. And it was called whiskey flavored condoms. So all of the labels have like the height of Scottish summer, and this particular one was called whiskey flavored condoms, which is funny because whoever was on the tasting panel had to have tasted it and went, that tastes like condoms, which of course begs the question, how do you know what condoms taste like? and then the whiskey came down to London, and everyone said, whoa, how do they know what condoms taste like? And then everyone tasted it and went, yeah, it actually does taste like condoms, because everyone just instinctively knows what condoms taste like. And this whiskey was an Ardmore, and then it sold out in half a day, which was really fast, and it was a sherry cask. It was like 440 bottles, sold out in half a day, and every single bottle went to Scandinavia. So ask yourself what was going on there. But what I think was beautiful about that is that it was this whiskey, and it was just, I wouldn't drink that. It tasted weird. It was really rubbery and like tasted like condoms.
So,
And
Mark Zuckerberg and ambassadors to Scandinavian countries, we do apologise.
And it was but it was just this, for me, it was just like, that's what whiskey can do. And I'm not saying that that's for everybody, it's not. But for me, the amazing thing about Scotch whiskey and about good single cask whiskey is that it's not about every whiskey being for everybody. It's not meant to be. Yeah. And I think that's being risk averse is no good. You can't, and like this idea of what Irish whiskey should taste like, that's no good either.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Scotland, there is no, like people coming in here all the time saying, I don't like Scotch because it's too peaty. That's not reflective of the industry.
It's not. It's only about what? About 20% of Scotch whisky is actually peated. Something like that. Yeah. It's about 20%.
I don't like Scotch whiskey, I like Irish.
Yeah, but there's this conception that that's what it is, and I get it all the time when I'm doing tastings and stuff, and some people will go, invariably they're not whiskey drinkers, but they come along because their husband, mainly, let's be honest, has bought the tour, so they come along, and they say, oh, I don't like whiskey, and I'll say, well, put it like this, when did you try it? Oh, I tried it in college. Yes, when you had absolutely zero money, so you bought the cheapest shit possible and think it all tastes the same. And then they'll go, oh, I don't like Scotch. Yeah, it's because you bought the cheapest bloody Scotch you could find, and it's, without casting aspersion on Bales, sometimes it's Bales.
Yeah.
And the problem is, you say the Blair Athol single malt is what goes into Bales. Blair Athol single malt's awesome. I mean, it's a fabulous, fabulous single malt. But people have these perceptions, and that it's very hard to break it. You know, it's very hard to get them to move around. But whiskey goes from everything that's like light tea to treacle, and everything in between. And once the best, whenever I'm doing whiskey tastings for people, and you know that there's a couple of people that aren't whiskey drinkers on it, the best words you can ever hear is, "I quite like that," because as soon as they say, "I quite like that," you go, got you. Because if they like that, they'll maybe buy that bottle, and then if they buy that bottle, they'll move on to something else, and they'll try it and they'll spend a couple of more pound on something a bit better quality, and suddenly you have it that they've opened their eyes that it's actually quite nice. Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, case in point, I mean, this comes from Ben Rinnes, and I mean, Ben Rinnes is refer to it as a workhorse distillery. You know, Ben Rinnes is not a whiskey you would taste generally out in the market, because all of it goes into blends. It's Diageo-owned distillery, so like your Johnny Walker would use Ben Rinnes, and I mean, it's a whiskey that fits a very specific profile.
You get one?
Thank you very much.
Oh, good, everybody got one?
Sorry. Was that here?
Everybody got a drink?
Can I get a glass of water for drinking?
Yes, of course you can, sir.
I would say half of the Scotch malt whiskies I buy in the States are based on the name. I try not to look at the numbers, even though I know what the name sounds good.
But again, it's like,
I'll grab that for you.
you take the McConnell's distillery. The bottle looks amazing.
Yeah.
And it says 1776 on it.
Oh,
We'll
sorry.
get some glasses of water here.
Well, that's where America was from. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah, it's kind of going for the living room look. So
People say, oh, it's all about flavour, it's all about
Yeah.
flavour.
Oh,
it's all
thank
about
you.
He said that. He said, we're going to swim in Hearth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, so I leased this wee space, and then
Why
Phil,
does
who
milk
owns the
chocolate
bars,
sell
just
about
he's
1,000
a
bars
lovely
for
guy,
dark
and
chocolate? Because dark
so it was
chocolate's
just for
much
me and
more
him.
flavour in it.
Like
it's
I'd
because-
say that I'm trying to make the best whiskey bar in Ireland, which I do believe that's where we're going. But
my feeling.
I just wanted to make
When
something.
milk chocolate goes in your mouth, it's very
Yeah, with
creamy
lots of
and
really
rich.
cool whiskey,
Whereas
and
dark
let it
chocolate
kind of grow
sometimes can be a
naturally,
bit
and
grainy.
like some Marty.
And that makes a huge
Sorry?
difference.
You want to keep it all upstairs here?
Originally when we were opening, we were going to open up as in the whole
covers a lot of problems and
of
stuff.
upstairs,
Something
but I
feels
was
nice
like,
in your
let me because I mean, it doesn't not cheap.
Doesn't necessarily have a taste.
Stock it.
And I think it's one of the most important things.
at the same time,
Always-
I just wanted to
always overlooked.
start off
People
slow
don't
and see
ever
how it
talk
goes.
about,
I like the idea of
"Oh, that's
turning it
got a great
into like an
mouthfeel."
SMWS type arrangement where it's sort of like a society where people can come in who join into what we do and we buy casks and together as a cooperative. So I'm trying to take a Scotch approach to Irish whiskey. That's my
Well, no, that's
my
lovely.
dream.
It works for you.
Yeah. There you are. Sorry.
No, thank you very much.
Do you want to go?
No, I'm alright. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Does anyone want a glass of water? Yeah, no problem.
That's lovely.
Are you okay? Yeah.
I didn't realise they were just over there.
Try that one.
Asked you if I could-
No, don't be daft. You're fine. Did you want a glass of water, anyone? Or?
Yes, water, please.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
No problem.
You won't get any of those in the bar.
Yeah, sorry.
You do make it. You couldn't get it after the other side.
Glass of water, anybody? Yeah, get some more.
You are now a Scottish Malt Whisky Society bar, correct?
Sorry?
You are now a Scottish Malt Whisky.
Yeah, so we are the partner bar for Ireland.
I mean, one in Canada and one here.
Oh, cool. Did you the one out in? Okay, yeah. So I know I'm good friends with
Honestly, it's the
Kelly
best
Carpenter and her
best word you
husband.
ever hear. Is
They set it up,
Then you kinda
and they're
know
the ones who actually opened up
somebody
the
that's actually tasted
Hollywood
it, I thought,
distillery in
forward,
Edinburgh.
they might buy
Really
something.
nice people. But I mean, Alberta is like Alberta's amazing. Are you Canadian originally?
No, from Northern California, but I was going, my parents were going to Victoria at one point. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is on. Oh, they're having a tasting, and we're going to be there.
Yeah.
Got my dad back into whiskey.
Yeah, it's very much centered around Alberta being the only reasonable.
Well,
Yeah.
the one thing about it is that's why I have a bit of an issue
No,
with
of course,
award
yeah,
ceremonies.
I've been there as well.
Awards.
But
Because either they're judged by
the
tasting
operations
panels,
only
or they're made up
were
of
possible
experts
because of
sometimes.
Alberta
They're
being
very-
not state-run. It's the
because
only
they have very different laws.
Yeah.
And it's the people who have
Yeah.
paid to be in it, or it's voted for by the public.
state-run liquor board. I mean,
How many
I'm not
scotches
like
do the public drink in a year?
anti
They're not
state-run
drinking- they're not
things, but I mean,
drinking
I'm very
anything from
anti state-run
160
liquor boards. I
distilleries.
just don't think they work. And you end up with quality liquor as a result. So
It only seems to be good when there's allocated things that people can buy at retail price.
yeah, but I mean, I think like the LCBO in Ontario is just that's a racket that they run. Yeah.
I'm saying to Marty, I buy half the bottles based on the name.
Yeah.
It's an interesting name.
Aye,
then it's worth
because I had 17 whiskies that night, and there was one of them was good. I can't remember which one. Well, what do you think of that whiskey? The second one.
Sorry?
What do you think of the second one?
Caramelly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like a lot smoother creme brulee. It's sort of, I'm trying, so
Don't you start with
I
that.
don't know what I'm imagining it's something Swedish is the cask when it's finished in, or well, it's a single cask. It'll be the same cask all the way through. Is that right? Did you say they're all single
Yeah,
cask?
it's all single cask, yeah. It's all the same way through. So I assume it's a sherry cask of some description.
Well, to me, flavour-wise, you're maybe having, it's maybe not orangey enough to be a muscat, but could be PX. Well, I'm just guessing.
But you enjoy it. Well, all right, all good.
As well. In my opinion,
Your opinion's all that counts to you, to be honest.
That's all I got the whole time.
You enjoy it?
3-2.
You like that? Who was beat 3-2 Forest?
Yes.
We were
1-2 each. 1-2 each.
We were one each, and remember I was watching.
I haven't played it.
What were Luton playing today? Luton were playing today, weren't they?
Yes, the word. I didn't check. I think it was 1 each.
Can't mind.
You could be going on a road, if it is sherry, Marty, I wouldn't be 100% sure that it is.
Somebody stole mine. Where's mine?
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Where is it? Seriously, I was down for a cigarette. I haven't had one of those. It's not that I like to sort of be an alcoholic.
Cause fucking issues.
Did you not get one?
No. Wouldn't be like them to fucking cause bother.
Just like I didn't get. Just like I didn't get.
You're okay.
Just like I didn't get a glass either.
bastards.
Shop in McDonald's, we've seen the glass, and then he's downstairs outside. He brings the glass at the back. Says, "Can you get one of those?" Ah, the dark horse.
What do you think of that one?
That's lovely. That's
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah.
What's the details?
So it's a PX hogshead. So that's so it's a bourbon cask.
Okay.
But it's so I don't know. Once you get into sherry casks, it gets very complicated how casks work.
That's one of my kind of things is talking about
Sherry casks.
sherry casks. It's hard to find out sometimes.
Yeah. So what happened is
All right, guys, listen. Sam's talking here.
98% of all whiskey in Ireland and Scotland is matured in bourbon casks. 2% is matured in. It's about 2% matured in sherry casks, wine casks, yada yada yada. A lot of the issue is so essentially there's a bunch of reasons why we moved over to bourbon casks after Prohibition ended, and we took it and started taking it in bourbon casks. But sherry casks historically are made out of Spanish oak, which is your Quercus rubin wood, which is a very specific style of wood, very porous oak, and it gives a lot of weight to things. So forget about the sherry. Just the actual oak itself has got a very specific flavor, and then what happened was then the Solera system, which is where sherry is matured.
I teach sherry and I teach wine.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah. So even your Oloroso now is more often than not matured now in American white oak.
Yeah.
So this is a PX cask, first fill, but it's a American oak cask. So it's American oak. It's a first fill PX cask. So like a lot of the sugars from the PX as you get into the wood. So then when they stick the new make in and mature it, so there's a lot of sherry inside this bottle. Now, I mean, if you're sherry, I think sherry is the best value for money alcoholic beverage.
It's going up a little bit in price
out there. But I think we've been saturated with PX. I think PX it's grand. It's just like syrup.
You see, there's also the question over is it actually a sherry?
Yeah.
And, well, it's also the casks themselves, because you've got 4 different types of casks. I mean, initially, sherry cask wasn't necessarily what they call bodega cask.
Yeah.
So the actual Solera cask from a bodega that has had sherry in it for however many years. Initially, up until 1982, sherry is more often than not transported in barrel and bottled in England or somewhere else. So, although it had sherry in the cask, it wasn't a Solera cask. Then you have the casks as per that are Lustau do, the cask that Middleton would use for theirs, where they actually season the cask. But that's not actually sherry. It never will be sherry. That's new. The oldest that will be is 3 years old.
Yeah.
And it never becomes sherry because they won't use that. They won't use a new barrel to make it. That will go for sherry barrel. There's also reconstituted sherry casks. So there's somewhere in Spain or Portugal that actually breaks down old casks and puts them into smaller barrels.
Yeah.
I've seen this in England. And then there's the bodega casks, which are the true. But that's even more complicated than that.
I mean, I wouldn't lie to you. This is Ben Rinnes, so they'd be getting all their casks from Speyside Cooperage, and I mean, I don't know if anyone could tell you.
Well, it's going to change now because sherry, Hearth will now be certifying their barrels that they are coming from Hearth.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of other areas that produce sherry style. Now, if you go to Boostak, they were saying, we have just got 4 sherry casks, so 2 Oloroso and 2 PX sherry. The proper, I went and looked at them and said, that's not sherry. That's Montilla Morales, which is a little bit further inland and a little bit further. And that's not, these were 90-year-old casks, so that's not to say it was an inferior product. In fact, it was probably a superior product because it had Montilla Morales in it. which by a quirk of nature is actually all PX, even though it's Oloroso, because they don't use Palomino Fino, they use PX even for their dry styles. So there's nothing simple about it. You know, it's like,
yeah, but then again, you don't get because I go through phases of liking sherry cask whiskey, but when I drink sherry cask whiskey, it's that everyone's very sulfur averse on whiskey. But I think it's I think a little bit of sulfur on whiskies.
I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
No, I think sulfur is what makes.
That's what makes the condom taste.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like the way she's laughing and nobody else.
I'm pretty sure the picture says tastes like that, but predominantly meal, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not casting a spirit. I am not demographic anybody. Right, so guys, tell me this. What do we think of this whiskey? What do we think of this Ben Rennes?
Yeah.
Little touch of water. Little touch of water, I think, helps it. Yes. All good. All good. Justin?
Yeah.
He's okay.
Peter, what do you think of the whiskey?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, it's very nice. Why is it called the height of summer? Height of Scottish summer?
Height of Scottish summer. So it says rum-soaked raisins and charred oak. Now, Davila, I don't know, diluted in serrano ham, lemon, olive, meatballs, followed by orange wine.
Well, there's not many olives in Scotland.
I'm going to say serrano ham and a. Surely the midgies will take care of your serrano ham.
Guys, you have to remember. Height of Scottish summer. This is Edinburgh.
Yeah.
This is Edinburgh.
The water, the height of summer.
Huh?
The height of summer and the depth of the water.
Yeah, in Scotland.
The rainfall.
All the walls. Here, quick fact for you. Edinburgh gets less rain every year than Rome. So there you go. Yeah, it does. Edinburgh gets. Yeah.
But they get more.
I'm a tour guide. I'm a tour guide. I know this kind of thing. No, basically what happens is. Basically what happens is it dumps everything on the west coast before it gets there, and Edinburgh gets 2 inches less rain every year than Rome. So there you go. Yeah. Parasols. Yeah. But honestly, yeah, Edinburgh gets less rain. Nice. You like that?
It's funny though, like Ben Rennes wouldn't be like normally like Ben Rennes single cask are like really young.
Yeah.
This is 16 years old sherry cask, which is quite beefy. So I mean, for me, again, the trick to good whiskey is just balance. It's a balance of flavor. I mean, single malt's quite difficult to make, and you don't want to lose the flavor of the single malt with the cask. So often with like Ben Rennes would be a distillery which produces a very light style of single malt. So typically, when you have Ben Rennes, they don't age them very long, and they usually it'd be a bourbon cask would be more common than not. But I mean, this is a really big cask, 16 years old. But the trick is, does the single malt fight through? Can you still taste it? I think you can. You still get that balance of flavor. And again, that's because there's no rules really to whether this works or it doesn't. It's just that particular whiskey worked at that thing. Like, so when I saw it, I was like 16 years old, PX cask, Ben Rennes. Didn't make any sense to me. I'd never seen one like that before, but it's nice. And it's just,
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
What's the retail on that one?
It's 60, that would be about 85.
£85 a bottle. For you,
It's a good price.
that's a good price.
Remember, with SMWS, it's a cooperative SMWS. So I'll tell you a little bit about SMWS. So SMWS started back in, first cask was bought back in 1978. And it was 3 guys. The main one was a guy called Pip Hills. And they went up on a holiday. He was an accountant. They went into Glenfarclas. Back then, they didn't do tours of distilleries. So they went up and they thought, sure, we'll knock the door and see if they'll let us look around. Right enough, they knocked on the door. They let them look around. And then these guys said, you know, could we buy one of these casks? And the guy was like, back in 1978, Scotland, they would have sold casks to the devil if they thought they could sell out of it. So, because there was no one else buying it. So they were like, yeah, no problem, buy the cask. So they stuck it into the back of a trailer and took it back to Edinburgh and drunk it. And then they just kept doing that.
They drunk the cask in Edinburgh.
Three of them, and then well, essentially, and then what happened was, and this is the basis of the society. They took it became like a group, and they started at a home, and then it became like this thing, and then in 1983 we kept buying casks. Then they bought Leith, which is in bought the vaults in Leith, which is the oldest building in Leith. And which is this building here on the thing. It was the old wine vaults in Leith. They bought that, turned it into a club room. Absolutely gorgeous if you ever get a chance to go. And then that was in 1983, and that was the basis of the society. So it's a society, it's a cooperative, and nowadays they have 35,000 members worldwide. But essentially that's what gets them access to the barrels. And it's the reason why when they go into a distillery and they want to buy a barrel, they'll entertain them, is because there's 35,000 members worldwide, and not just 35,000, but these are 35,000 whiskey fans worldwide. So it's a very, it's a very special institution. And I mean, on average, I think they go through between 40 and 50 casks a month. And I mean, and still rejecting 70% of the casks that they own. So, and again,
is that where Renee got the idea for Relatic?
No comment, but why do you mean, like, as in, why do you think that?
I'm very interested, between grift and graft.
Yeah.
These guys sound like good guys. I'm watching them follow on to see guys that are in and out, making a dollar. So you've got Relatic. How do you pronounce it?
Briclari.
You have all their releases and all their casts, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
So why are we differentiating here?
Right.
They're doing the same thing as SMWS, really.
No, not really. No, it's totally different.
And again, because an SMWS, like, I mean, I say it's a society, not a club. So, like, I would say the different societies are inclusive, whereas clubs are exclusive. But like, it is a private members society. So I mean, like, I think they're the most important thing you never heard of in the industry, because they're doing these casks. And the reason why I say they're the best independent bottler in the world is because they do the most. So they run through more whiskey than any other independent bottler, simply because they're going through 40 to 50 casks a month. So, and I mean, the reason, so you even asked me earlier on, price of it, 85 price. The reason why it's 85, the prices are capped for the members. Now, I'd say the society is a wee bit further down the line in terms of raising their prices than a lot of them, because a lot of people would think, oh, Jesus, the society is actually getting really expensive. But I mean, that's just because the society is probably 10 years further down the line. It's like you go into these places and you see these, like, I mean, back in the day, it used to be like Signatory or something like that, and the value for money on single casks can be incredible, simply because you don't know the bottle, and it's not in the distillery's bottle. But I mean, a lot of these guys are running off prices, 10 years behind what
Thompsons are doing it, Brennan and Rudd are doing it, they're all doing it.
Yeah.
What's so special?
Again, it's just the it's the amount of casks. If I was just to break it down, apart from the club rooms or anything else, it's the amount of casks that they go through, and it's the process. So the society, as I said before, it's all blind tasting. Tasting panels always independent. Technically, it's not always the case, but technically there shouldn't be anybody who works for the society on the tasting panel. So it's an unbiased tasting panel. So the whiskies, when they're chosen, are simply chosen because they're,
I'm going to shut up, but these guys are essentially following you.
Sorry?
They're following you. They're trying to be you, Barry and Rudd and Thompson's and whiskey brokers.
I wouldn't say Berry Brothers and Rudd are trying to be the Scotch malt whiskey. Berry Brothers. Yeah, but Berry Brothers and Rudd are slightly coming at things from a totally different angle.
I'll be honest. I am actually going to be stalking Berry Bros as of this week. So
Berry Brothers.
I think
Berry Brothers are a big name in their own right. Let's just say they don't have to compete with anybody, but it's a totally different thing. But if you look at what some guys are trying to do in Ireland as independent bottlers compared to what independent bottlers do in Scotland, I think you'll agree with me here, Sam. It's not really the same thing, is it?
No.
It's the genesis. I mean, but it is the genesis of going forward. But lots of guys doing single cask bottlings. Yeah, that's fair enough. But the SMWS do a totally different thing, you know.
They do. They do. They reject so much, and they get cream of the crop. I mean, as I go back to what we were saying earlier on, like the reason why Scotch is so amazing and why independence comes so good in Scotland is because they have to do all the other stuff. You couldn't run an industry based on independent single cask bottlings. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You need the white label, you need the blends, you need the single malt, you need all of those other things, because essentially they're taking the lion's share of the stock. Because it's like if they're rejecting 70%, 70% aren't going into the sea, like they're going into other things. It's just, so you need all of that other stuff to make the industry what it is. But again, that's the beauty of it. So like you have to have that, again, that diversity, and Scotland's have that. And again, why is that possible? It's cooperatives. It's a cooperatively run industry, and it has been since it's 1823. Like that's the crux of it. So if you were to take away one thing from today, it's the cooperatives work. Like it's the way.
Well, certainly on the scale that Scotland do it. I mean, if you look at people are very down on the big corporations.
Yeah.
The likes of Diageo. Oh, they're almost seen as the enemy. Oh, they do horrible things. If it wasn't for the big corporations, there wouldn't be any whiskey industry. Yeah. There would be a black market whiskey industry. That would be what it is. I mean, Diageo will come in. There's this idea that these big corporations come in, take over, tell you, right, that's it, blah, 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 blah. It's not really. People, they cater for what people actually like. Johnny Walker, they've just spent 180 million on all the Johnny Walker experiences.
I could have imagined
it's some ridiculous amount of money. But a couple of guys here have told me that recently they were in the Johnny Walker experience in Edinburgh. Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good because they've spent an absolute bloody fortune on it.
Yeah.
And people drink lots and lots of Johnny Walker, so they're doing something right that people like. Okay, is it the most complex spirit in the world? Well, no, it's not. But then most people don't actually spend a lot of time coming to places like this. You know, the vast majority of people just want to buy a bottle, take it home and have a drink. And they cater for that. But as a sideline, they buy other distilleries, and a lot of the time they just say, well, the reason we're buying it is that you can carry on doing exactly what it is you've been doing, because that's why we've bought you. And they do that. Now, okay, there's criticisms for some of the distilleries they've taken over, that the quality's not the same, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's okay. That's a fair criticism in a lot of the cases. But when it's all said and done, if it wasn't for these guys investing money, and it wasn't these guys with their promotional budgets and their marketing budgets, nobody's selling anything. You know, you walk in, and the guy who's the shining brightest on the shelf, if they're at the right price, that's what you buy. And the corporations, Diageo and all, know that. So that's, I'm never that critical of corporate stuff, because
I don't know if it was Jim McEwan or if it was Richard Patterson. So both of them are very quotable. They're like the Samuel Johnson, Oscar Wilde of the whiskey world. But one of them said that, like, I
don't think Jim McEwan's ever been good.
He'd be the Oscar Wilde. But
no, it wasn't Jim Murray. No, he's
it'd be a completely different quote if it was Jim Murray. But well, we'll say actually just on note about Jim Murray is when I first started in this industry, when I decided I wanted to work in this industry, the first person I ever wrote an email to ask them, you know, for advice was Jim Murray, and he was very, very kind, very generous to me through the years.
Did he respond?
He did, yeah.
That's your first, your first letter to somebody with an email.
Yeah.
You say letter?
No, he put it on a letter.
But
his first
but it was
communication was by email.
yeah, but it was either Jim McEwan or it was Richard Patterson that said, he goes like, I go around the world telling people about whiskey. He's like, I'm in Germany one day, I'm drinking the best whiskey in the world, smelling it, tasting it. And so the next morning I'm in Denmark, I'm drinking the best whiskey in the world, smelling it, tasting it. And then I'm in Russia and I'm doing the same thing. He says, sometimes I go back home to my home in Edinburgh, and he says, an open bottle of Teachers and just drink the fucking thing. For me, I love that. It's just I love this idea that because there is like I drink Johnny Walker. I think Johnny Walker's there's some good stuff in it.
I'm not a huge fan because if you buy a bottle of Johnny Walker from like the 1960s at auction,
Yeah,
which you can do for like 30-40 quid, it's nothing like what you buy today. Today it's quite bland because it's a mixer for cocktails. That's essentially what it's for.
Yeah.
Make highballs.
Yeah. And in the 60s and the 70s, you know, like I was going back to saying like the Scottish whiskey, the Irish whiskey industry was on its knees, so they were like Johnny Walkers and those ones were actually what was keeping the whole thing afloat. So really good quality single malts were being put into. So if you taste like 1970s or 1980s Johnny Walker, even red label, it's incredible.
Yeah,
like
totally different.
Yeah,
totally different and lovely. Nice. There you go.
I don't know. I didn't even know that.
Moi. Is that you? Everybody get one? Everybody got one? There's an extra.
Lost out.
Oh, that's lovely.
It might be connected to, and I don't know, I made this a strange connection. Do you ever, if you go up to Carnlough, there's the Londonderry Arms, and in the Londonderry Arms, there's a place called the Arkle Bar. And the Arkle Bar at one point in history was the best whiskey bar in all of Ireland, and the reason why it was because all the horse traders from Scotland and from Ireland used to congregate.
If you get guys who are
Carnlough,
doing one thing,
and all horse traders drank whiskey, and they all had cash, so they would go in and they just had an amazing selection of Scottish whiskey and Irish whiskey in that bar. And for me, I have to admit, that was one of the main inspirations behind me opening this place. I love the idea that if it's going to be the best whiskey bar in Ireland, it would have to have a great selection of Scottish and a great selection of Irish.
We'll sell beer. I'll give you a good example. Bailey's Irish Cream. Bailey's is by far and away the best selling Irish cream.
And were they not the same family up until quite recently?
But a few years ago,
it has,
the ICO decided to change what went into it. And what they did was they changed from whiskey alcohol content to just change it to any alcohol.
With the reason?
The alcohol was only there as a sideline to the actual cream reservation. And what they did was they just used basically a brandy. Just switched over.
I'd say those most whiskey, like in a version of they're afraid of Scotch. Like most people are afraid of Scotch just because it's so.
Getting headaches.
Yeah.
Getting headaches.
Here, everywhere. Yeah, everywhere.
A lot of people don't drink
Scottish
Bailey's. They don't drink very much alcohol. They just drink it at Christmas. Oh my God, I can't drink anymore. And they really.
Yeah, that'd be another bar. I would think to myself.
I'm very quickly changing my thinking. So
nearly as
people
good
don't
as the
like
pasta I'd be.
they'll stop.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen too, where they end up going and changing, and they get a revolt.
Yes, and they change. And the thing is, the big guys actually, I mean, there's this idea that the small guy can react quicker. But the big guys, if they think they're lost money, I'll change it back. And they basically, I personally don't think people should be criticised for catering to what people actually like. Don't get me wrong. I've now decided that I'm never eating a McDonald's or a Burger King ever because they're just awful. It's not really food, and I've never enjoyed it to start with. It's just one of those things. If you can't be bothered doing something, you buy it. So now, right, that's it. I'm done. So from now on, I'll go. But I've made that choice, and as a consumer, I'm perfectly entitled to make that choice. McDonald's will cater to the guys that can't be arsed making stuff. They'll stop off and buy something on the way home. But they're catering to that, and people are buying into that, and that's what they sell. So that's fine. I'll quite happily go home and I'll spend the extra 20 minutes making myself something to eat.
Right. I'm with you on that one.
But that's it, but corporations, a lot of the time, they'll only sell to people what people actually want to buy. Right. And that's not the worst thing in the world. And everybody can piggyback on the back of it, And a lot of the time, the corporations buy distilleries and they'll buy all that kind of stuff. And they'll not change anything, because if there was any reason of changing it, then what's the point of buying it in the first place, So, I don't get me wrong, there's lots of criticism for these guys. You can be very critical of them, but you have to remember the positive points as well as the negatives.
And I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that there's some that will change things because hey, I've got economies of scale buying a certain grain, or I've got economies of scale doing something else. It's those types of things that become a problem because you change the product and you don't have that, and it's not what people want.
Yeah, if it changes from what people actually want, then that becomes an issue,
More water.
But then they don't buy stuff basically because it's
Go
rubbish.
ahead.
They don't buy it because it's rubbish.
It's good. It more grows on you.
Yeah.
As you get to enjoy it, a bit more grows on you. I think I find a wee bit more on you.
So we're live in the Hearth on the top of the Newtownards Road. It's 199 Newtownards Road. We're just about halfway through now. We've got a couple more whiskies to try. Everybody doesn't realise that this is live the whole time, even though they've been told there's a big red light in the corner. But if you're enjoying the show, remember to comment, like, and share. We're not live tonight at 10 o'clock. This is this week's show. Sam's been very kind to entertain us tonight. And, well, listen, tell us a little bit more about the actual premises here, because you didn't go through that.
So, as I say, it was opened 2 months ago. And it was because Phil Patterson, who's a tremendous guy who owns Hearth, we sat down and we were chatting about like what a Belfast bar would be, or an Irish bar and Irish pubs and stuff like that. And he's got quite, so they won Bar of the Year in Northern Ireland last year, the year before. And I was just chatting to somebody earlier on. Like I have a belief that, there's this bar, as I was telling you earlier on, up in Carnlough called the Arkle Bar. And at one point, it was the best whiskey bar in all of Ireland. Yeah. And the reason why it was the horse traders used to meet up from Scotland and from Ireland, and they used to meet up in Carnlough and go into this bar. So we've had an amazing selection of Scotch whiskey, an amazing selection of Irish whiskey. And to me, that's just the absolute most obvious thing in the world. Like a great whiskey bar would have an amazing selection of Scotch and an amazing selection of Irish. And I think in a lot of bars in Ireland, you'd be more likely to get Japanese whiskey than you would be Scottish whiskey. And I think that Scottish whiskey is turned, I think Irish whiskey is turned as well. So for me, it was like, well, how could we, and I think Belfast, I think East Belfast, I think Ballyhackmore is the perfect location to have that.
Do you need to book this? Is it for corporate entertainment? Is it groups of friends? Is it for stag parties?
You can book it out, but I mean, this is bars open Wednesday through to Sunday, open to the public. Anybody can come in. The other thing about it is every bottle in here is open to pour, so there's nothing that's not for pouring.
Okay.
And I like to think that all my pricing is very accessible. I always do a malt of the moment. Malt of the moment's £5.50.
I noticed you do malt of the moment, and you have a sort of a table that goes, and it goes through colours, and then it goes the linen at the bottom.
Yeah.
Obviously, Belfast was known as Linenopolis with 100,000 spinning spindles. I mean, that's pretty catchy.
Yeah, and I don't, so I haven't got anything. The highest I've got at the point is black, a black dram, and that's 28-year-old Glen Grant. And again, for me, it's like I want people to come in here and drink. It's like the malt of the moment. Like 1 week it might be a 12-year-old, 1 week it might be a 25-year-old. I want people to try whiskeys. I want people to try older whiskeys. I don't want people to feel like the older whiskeys are unattainable, because for me that's part of the exploration. And I also want to have honest conversations. Just because a whiskey's old doesn't mean it's good. Yeah. And just because it's young doesn't mean it's inferior. It's really just down to flavour and tablet. And I mean, even this bar, for me, the design of this place all goes around the round table, because in my spare time I'm really interested in King Arthur, and I like the idea of
this is what it's table. Like. I mean, look.
Well, I like people sitting around, and I like this idea of everyone's born equal. So for me, it's like people coming in here, sitting around and trying whiskeys. Everybody's equal. Everyone's opinion's equal, and like the idea is that it's like a living room. I like the idea that people feel comfortable to just come in and enjoy it.
So is Marty Sir Lancelot or the knight that said nee? Come on over. Come on over. Come on over.
I leave you for 2 minutes. Right? I leave you for 2 fucking minutes.
I had to fill. I was going to say Guinevere.
Everyone's born equal, but I just want to do the I am Arthur, by the way.
I want to be one of them wee boys from, one of these wee boys in You know the film, the Monty Python film, with the coconut things. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Merlin to come along to be
Yeah.
like.
Oh no, Justin could be Merlin because he has magic. No. So I must have missed this. The
So
pure Irish.
this is our. So in my own humble way, and I will say this. So I'm too stupid to come up with my own business model. So SMWS model, right down to the cast selection, to what they're about. For me, that's the gold standard. So I said to you that my ambition here is a best whiskey bar in Ireland, and subsequently, and as a result, to produce great Irish whiskey. So this is the first one that we did. It was a blind tasting panel that selected it, and it's just this is the one that came through. So this is the first. It's not finished in anything. It's a bourbon cask, first fill bourbon cask, 7-year-old whiskey. It's non-chill filtered. Like, again, I don't do anything. I'm not saying in terms of blending, that is an amazing skill. Is an amazing skill. Anyone who's good at blending, problem maybe is that not everyone's amazing at it. I'm not amazing. I wouldn't pretend to be a blender. So for me, nature does all the hard work. Let the people choose the casks, and then don't do anything to them. Don't finish them. Don't mess about. Just take it out of the barrel, stick it into the bottle. You can add water yourself. So it's a very simple process. And I mean, this is just the one. And I mean, for me, even like the natural inclination is to do an Irish whiskey first, because everyone's like, oh, well, Irish whiskey, that'll be the lightest one, and then you move into the Scotch. But I mean, I put this purposely in the middle of the whiskies because I think that it stands up. And Marty and I were talking about this earlier on. It's about texture. Like, forget about your nose and your flavor. Texture is what, in my opinion, what makes. That's what, like, my son's 6 years old. He, like, everything's based on texture for him. Yeah. I think we're all the same. Like, it's the way things feel on your tongue. And for me, that's where the whiskeys fit into the mix. So this whiskey, to me, has got like a very particular mouthfeel, which is a much more...
Beautiful. Do you want me to tell you the truth? The first thing I thought of was it's buttery. It doesn't necessarily taste buttery, but it's buttery. Yeah. Lovely, oily. And I always say this. If it's all about flavour, why does milk chocolate sell 1,000 bars for every one of dark chocolate? Dark chocolate tastes much richer than milk chocolate. And it's, if you ask people, that, Cadbury's and all know this, and that's why they say smooth milk chocolate. Whenever you put it in your mouth, it just melts and coats your mouth and envelops your mouth, and it feels rich. It feels wonderful. But people never really talk about this. And you can talked about this earlier on. You can mask an awful lot of problems with a whiskey if the mouth feels really good. Yeah. And then people will turn around and say, "Oh, it's very smooth. It's very smooth." Like Barry White. No, it's not. I mean, the thing about it is, once you actually start asking people, "What do you mean by the word smooth?" At a certain point, they'll go, "Oh, well, it feels nice in my mouth," and it's that lovely, rich mouthfeel that I mean. Johnny Walker's got actually quite a nice mouthfeel. Yeah. Officer's Choice. I tasted the Indian, the best-selling whiskey in the world from India. It doesn't taste of anything. It's pretty rubbish, to be honest, in terms of taste. But when you put it in, it's kind of that sort of light, syrupy feel in your mouth that, that feels actually quite nice. So whenever it goes, invariably it goes into cocktails, but it kind of lends itself to that, that sort of syrupy, sugary sweetness that people actually quite like, and that's lovely. That's really nice whiskey. Really.
Thank you. Yeah, and as I say, I can't take credit for it. Which I mean, as I say, we bought it, but it was just, again, tasting panel. So, and again, that's why if you go on our site, we're encouraging people to sign up to the thing. It's simply so we've got people to choose for tasting panels, because I'd want to do these all the time, because like if you look behind you, these are all like cask samples. So I'm getting these cask samples all the time to try whiskey, and the idea is that, I mean, we're not the society. We're not getting cream of the crop a lot of the time. Like a lot of the stuff that would be coming through. So for me, the tasting panel is more important than ever, and getting that right. It's really important that you're having that kind of rejection rate that not all of these barrels are getting through the net. But what's the story with the corks? Oh, the cork. So I like the idea everything's once in a lifetime in here. So every single cap is individually carved by a Belfast sculptor called Mike Hogg, who's going to be at the Venice Biennale this year, so he's going to get famous. But everyone's individually carved by him, so they're quite nice. They're like little
And how much is this a bottle?
95
95.
pounds.
95.
Yeah. So
Okay. What do you think of this? Nice. It's beautiful. Nice. I don't think it does, to be honest. But then, I mean, the thing is, it's like everything. Everybody has. It's what works for you. Exactly. Everybody has a different sort of palate, different taste, different style, But the one thing I would say is, don't forget about mouthfeel. It's so vitally important. And if you have something that you put in your mouth, when it goes in your mouth and it feels that sort of viscous, oily stuff, it just feels much better. But although sometimes it just does mask something that's bloody awful. You go, the mouthfeel goes in, and you go, oh no, that's quite nice. Well, hang on, maybe it's not, because in the finish it just dies. But yeah, if someone's got a nice mouthfeel, normally it means it's really good.
I think, Marty, that mouthfeel leads on to finish. So if you've got a good mouthfeel and a good finish, that is...
A lot of the time, yes. Yes. But not all the time. No. Yeah. No. Yeah, well, I know one guy that all he drinks is Bushmills 10, and I can't really criticise him for that, because it's a fantastic whiskey at a really nice price, and that's all he wants to drink. And here's to him.
Yeah.
You know, but I do love the guy. If I'm ever working in the Friend, and I don't work in it full time, but if I'm working in the Friend at hand, one of the best things you can ever get is whenever someone comes in, and it's very easy to turn around and say, oh, it's £90 a bottle. And we go, yeah, that's fair enough, that's okay. For a lot of people, £90 an awful lot of money, a lot of money. You know, and the guy who's curious about his whiskey journey, or he wants to do something, comes in and he buys a bottle, you know, Black Bush. Personally, I think Black Bush is the best value whiskey in the world. It's superb. Yeah. I don't think there's an awful lot of competition for it at the price range it's at. No. But the guy who drinks it, and then he turns around and he says, I'll put an extra tenner to it. You know, I can afford £40 this month, or £40 this week, or whatever. And he buys that, and then he'll put another £10 to it, and he think, right, you know, I'm really going to have to be selective with this. And it's kind of that sort of, you know, Darwin, you know, the evolution of the fittest. And he's not going to spend £400 in a bottle or £700 in a bottle. So it's a guy who actually has to think, you know, I tried that. I don't have access to hundreds of bottles. I can only afford this. And he's the guy you really want to listen to, because he's the guy that will pick, that's really good. I tried that and it's not good. I ruined my money, so I have to be very careful. And those guys that come in on that journey with the £40, the £50 in their pocket, that they're not just wanting to go and get pissed out their heads on cheap Tesco's own brand Scotch, you know. And those are the guys you really want to be listening to, you know, because every penny of it is actually important, you know. So anyway.
Well, I mean, if people ask me, like, what's the difference between an expensive bottle of whiskey and a cheaper bottle? Like, for me, it's not, one's not better than the other. It's
income.
Like, I don't think that, but it's a more expensive bottle of whiskey should be more interesting. It's just, it's interesting, should be more depth to it. Like, I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I would probably only really drink single cask whiskies, but that's just because, you know, I've got a 6-year-old, I don't get enough opportunity to get, you know, drunk anymore. So, so for me, when I drink a whiskey, I want something that's got a bit of weight. Like, that's why I think I got into sherry, is because, like, sherry for me is a drink where you don't need a lot of sherries to get a lot of bang for your buck. Yeah. You know, and it's an interesting drink. And
it's absolutely fabulous. I was going to say something, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, yeah, no, sherry is it's one of the things that I mean, early on, I think it's a bit different now, where you're staying, this is an Oloroso finish or a PX finish, or a few times, occasionally now you're seeing like a Fino, or more often than not probably a Manzanilla finish. But I mean, the difference between a Manzanilla and an Oloroso is like chalk and cheese, but they're both fabulous sherries, and they give you a totally different flavour profiles.
Well, put it like this,
different ways.
I walked into an off license in Belfast not that long ago, and I bought a 30-year-old cask Palo Cortado sherry for £25. I mean, it was nothing, and I was like, I was blowing the dust off it, but I was like, why is nobody picking this up?
A lot of the bigger producers are kind of manufacturing. They say manufacturing, but it's still a fabulous product, but they're kind of manufacturing.
But for £25? That's for nothing. That's for nothing. Yeah, we dust in the ball.
We were in Montier Mirage, which is one of those casks where the two stocks have.
Yeah.
A few years ago, and they didn't produce Palo Cortado in that region. And I asked, said, why don't you produce Palo Cortado? And she said, oh, that's a mistake. And I went, so it's a mistake, you produce it? No, it's a mistake. And I went, oh, Palo Cortado is a mistake.
Yeah.
Because it's not that they haven't categorized it properly at the start. It starts in one way and then kind of
finishes in a way that it's not directed. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not directed.
But some of the bigger producers are now kind of trying to do that. But it's still.
But I mean, I personally think everybody who's interested in whiskey should be drinking a bit more wine and fortified wine.
Yeah.
Just in terms of to expand your palate, just to give you a bit more of a flavour profile on stuff that you're drinking that you enjoy. I say you enjoy. It's not that you drink sherry that you don't enjoy, but if you're actually interested in sort of characteristics of whiskey, then really you should be exploring cognacs, Armagnac maybe, and sherries and so on and so forth. Yeah.
On that, for a bottle of really bad red wine, like mass-produced red wine. But if you spent, I was thinking the 9 crimes or that one. 19 crimes.
A friend of mine said, I love 19 crimes. And I go, well, yeah, it's very commercial. And that brings me back to, I couldn't remember what I was going to say. You mentioned about people ask you what's the difference between a cheap whiskey and an expensive whiskey. I think there's probably, and I ask that all the time about wine. Right. Why would you pay £2,000 a bottle for a bottle of wine against 19 crimes? People love it. But you have different palates. But I think there's probably more of a correlation to price on whiskey in terms of value because it's a more expensive whiskey. There's definitely, it's aged for a longer time. There's more goes into it. Different casks. So there's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
That go into that. Whereas with wine, you go to a certain stage for quality level, and you can taste the wine. You go, yes, that's better quality. But you get to a certain price, and you're starting to pay for rarity value, and you're starting to pay for people who have money and can afford to pay it, and it's rare, in the world market.
Yeah.
So
a £20 bottle of wine is just as good, or if not better, than £100 bottle of wine that was purely that's the rarity.
That's kind of what I'm saying. It depends, but it also depends on your palate too. But yeah, there comes a stage, and you're probably talking around the £50 to £100 mark, where the quality can't really increase that much more.
But I
think though, if you only drink, and it's the same with wine, with whiskey. If you only drink, like if you spend your whole life, you're only drinking whiskey of a specific price range, and then all of a sudden somebody just took you in here and then poured you a glass of single cask whiskey, there's a good probability you taste it and go, that's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just weird, and that's fair enough.
It's the same with a Bordeaux against 19 crimes. Now Bordeaux is changing a little bit. The tannins are softening, but in the past, it took 20 to 30 years for a good Bordeaux.
Well, I mean, I always think if you take it down the sort of olive oil range, you can spend a lot of money on olive oil. You can go and buy the cheap. You can buy the cheap stuff in the supermarket at sort of £3-4 a bottle, or you can spend a lot of money on olive oil. And whenever you taste it, people go, "Ugh," because it tastes very strong. It tastes very, very, very strong. Yeah, it's very strong. And for some people, they really like that, but the vast majority of people probably don't. And there's a variety of olive oils as well. And the thing about it is, if you have people who have that sort of palate, one people might like that, and other people like that, and other people like that, but they're very definite in it. Whereas if something's very sort of easy and generic, then most people will go, yeah, that's all right, I'll do okay. You know, it's like if I'm ever out, it's all right. Yeah. If I'm out, I don't drink tea, because the tea whenever I'm out is normally bloody awful.
Tea. Yeah.
But I'll drink coffee, because I reckon bad coffee's drinkable, bad tea's not. Now, you see, I can drink bad coffee, but I just cannot drink bad tea. And it's not the most it's not a Michelin star recipe here, you know. Leave a tea bag in it a fair long time and let me alone.
Squeeze it.
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze it. No, don't squeeze it. Leave it alone. Chicken nuggets and taco van.
It's just your taste.
Are you getting samples?
Well,
of these?
drink.
Yeah, because if you want, I can pour them straight into the.
I just need it.
Sorry, guys.
So popular. It's easy and sweet.
Did you get one?
Yeah, it's about what you're about to say.
It's like
Sorry, sweetheart.
your first carry, you're not buying 30 quid bottles of wine, you're buying blue numbs. Why? Because
He knows his stuff.
I started drinking
Could be bottles. Nice. They're nice little bottles. Oh, yeah, okay.
Has everybody got a glass? No, you need one. Everybody got a glass? Yeah, Chris? I seen you with that and then I thought, oh no, he's alright. He's alright, leave him alone. Oh, smell that. Smell that, that's lovely. It's Craigellachie. I have to say, that's lovely.
That smells lush.
I was smelling port myself. Port? Port and chocolate.
yeah.
Port and chocolate.
That's lovely. Smell. It's a Craigellachie. No, that was the one we had the last time.
The thing for me is if somebody says what's your favourite well, it's this one because it's in the glass and I have it.
Yeah. If anybody ever asks me what's your favourite whiskey, the default response is my next one.
Or if you have one in your hand, this one's
this glass and I said it's that sad. Give me a wee tiny toot.
Yeah, of course. Is that it? I'll get you a fresh glass. So.
There's loads going on.
Loads of it. Come to tell you the truth, you know whenever I smell those down, you know, the sweet and then the down, I always go sort of sweet and then down, the light and down. And in that, straight away, it's all the down notes that come up above the sweet ones.
I'm not suggesting
so when you're doing it,
should be friends with,
whenever you're nosing that,
with Marty and less of the
all those sort of deep notes just sit above the light ones. You can say that they're all there, but it's kind of like
I mean, I'm not getting a lot of sweetness on this, but
Oh no, the sweetness is there, but it's all sort of like, we're taking over here. You know?
I've introduced myself to him. He knows who I am.
I wouldn't like to try and say what happened. I mean, if you were
smart
going
as a
sherry,
guy.
what
I know that's
Not-
and I could do what I could do is sitting down and get his advice.
There's other guys that I see in the sphere organised.
So it's not overly sweet, but it is.
Promises the rest.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think there's sherry there.
That's good
I think
advice.
there's sherry there.
Okay.
No, I think there's sherry.
It's not hard. It's Marty says it's
I'm
not
going to
hard.
go Palo Cortado.
Yeah. Drink whiskey. That's all we do.
It's kind of that
What's the thing
musty
that one?
note, you know, that
This one?
that floor note.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good. Just off or what? Yeah. Yeah. So this is a first fill Oloroso. And it's a barrique. This is a barrique, so this is not like the Ben Rennes you tried. This is a barrique first fill sherry cask. So there's a couple of things going on with this whiskey. So if people ask like your favorite whiskey, I'm not gonna say my favorite whiskey. Like obviously there's a whiskey for when you get a job and a whiskey for when you lose a job. But I love whiskeys that come from this kind of L here, which is like your northern Speyside, northern Highlands. Like they don't do enough Glenord. I love Glenord. I think Glenord is absolutely class. If you ever get a SMWS 77 with Glenord, it's amazing. But whiskies that have that, you talk about mouthfeel, you touch that waxiness in the background, that peppery. They say it's because it's like, well, one of the reasons they say it's because very high slate content in the soil, so the water, so it's like your kettle at home. They get that calcium buildup inside their stills, which gives like a texture to the spirit. So you've got, it's a really big spirit, this one, Craigellachie. And then on top of that, it's a first fill sherry barrique. So it's a huge whiskey. So you've got a massive amount of sherry because it's first fill. You've got that Spanish oak, heavy, like maybe a bit touch of sulfur going on there. Yeah. Some people are more sensitive to sulfur than others. If it's bad, it can go kind of like eggy, which isn't nice, or condomy. But unless you like that sort of stuff. But if it's good, it just gives it that kind of earthy flavor, which again, talk about wine, like get into your burgundies or whatever. It's just that kind of that earthiness. I love it. So it's just a huge whiskey. So it's the whiskey you're gonna have before you go on to an Islay. But I mean, I think this is a whiskey that could set up.
I'll be honest with you. I was talking to Alistair there. There's lots of sweet notes there, but they're all suppressed by a sort of heavy, lovely richness just sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
it's kind. We were trying to say, well, is it sherry? And what case, what sort of sherry is it? And you said Palo Cortado.
Is it Palo Cortado? Is it? Yeah.
I don't know. I just know it's a first fill barrique.
Palo Cortado.
Excellent. Well, there you go.
There you go. But it's that sort of earthy notes that are sort of above the sweet notes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a beautiful whiskey. That's a really, really nice whiskey.
And so these guys, Three Carrig, they are the precursor to, if I'm allowed to say this on here, Cask 88. Do you remember them? Mm-hmm. So again, it just comes down to access to cask. These guys have great access to casks. It's funny, like, I don't know how to say this. Like, even if I want to source Bushmills, I have to go through third parties. If you want to get single cask Bushmills, you have to go through third parties, and most of them are in Scotland and in London.
As long as it isn't the Russians.
But again, it's just down to access to cask. These guys have good ones, so they're a really new independent bottler, but young crowd, nice people. And again, good selection process. So.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Sam, what's the price point?
That's a really competitive price point. That one, a bottle would probably be about 75. Yeah.
It's really nice. It's really nice for 75.
Yeah.
And just
There's so much going on, and it's constantly changing. It's a bit, if you drink Palo sherry, it's the same thing. You know, there's just so much complexity to it.
And I mean that's 52.9% alcohol. I think that's phenomenal value for
Yeah.
money.
No, it's a good one. Again, it's single cask. These guys are just like they're.
But I'm slightly confused by the barrique thing, you see, because that barrique's 225 litres,
Yeah.
which is not sherry.
No, it's not a butt.
So I'm wondering, is it then a reconstituted barrel that's been a barrel that's been broken down and put into smaller barrels to make it
probably?
Because I know for a fact that have you been to the Lakes Distillery?
Yeah,
No, I haven't been there, but
Well, they you can actually see their barrels in this thing, but they're not so these are our sherry barrels, and I'm going, well, they're not actually sherry barrels, so they're too small to be sherry barrels. But what they say is they buy. I said they don't know. It's a secret. This is where there's all this mystery around the whole thing. But they buy it from, I think, said it might have been a Portuguese, I'm not sure whether Spanish or Portuguese company. Barrel producers, so I think there's old barrels that can't be.
no, I think there's a wee bit too much flour on it. Okay. Sort of rancio notes. It's lovely. It's very nice. Very nice.
yeah.
Like that.
I would say that is
he knows
Spanish.
his stuff.
oak,
He knows
though,
his
would I
stuff.
be right?
Would you have a guy?
I would. It tastes to me like Spanish, from what I know.
Oh, it's lovely.
Southern America, you don't get that lignin.
That's not right.
Yeah. It's only 290. Yeah, it's only 298 balls. For me, that is a sherry cask, and that's what I'm saying. So people think they like sherry casks.
Show me
But that
arrow. Show me arrow.
is lovely, but that's not.
Think of that.
That's a sherry cask.
That's lovely.
I mean, it's got that earthy. It's a dirty.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These guys do independent boats. People are very brand loyal,
I love
which
that.
is nice. But I mean, independent bottlers.
I've only started looking at this.
If you get somebody that actually
I
knows
that's
what
very
they're doing,
interesting.
and you sort of trust them, then
I know I have been.
then-
Like, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get the wine that is finished.
Yeah.
So last year with Joe,
Put it like this: in terms of people in the whiskey world that know stuff or know their stuff, I'd rate him. I think he's glued up, and he's very, very lovely guy. Really, really nice guy. Really nice guy. Well, what do you think of
get the
that?
correlation between the two of them. On Tuesday, it was.
Very nice.
The only one where we couldn't get the actual wine.
Listen, the thing is, people can prefer anything, like, you know.
Did what we wanted.
So far, pure ice is from my people.
You're the second person that said that to me. Second person that said that to me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you think of that? Don't like it? Oh, Andy got yours.
Didn't go to waste.
What's your favourite so far?
There's literally 4 types of sherry cask, and then there's minimum 9 styles of sherry.
Yeah.
So, you know,
What's your favourite so far? The pure Irish. You're the fourth.
Totally. Well, I mean, the problem is we're becoming, again, I keep saying this about being too risk averse,
Oh, the Scottish summer
but
one.
that's like real sherry cask flavored whiskies just don't fit in generally in most
Listen,
people's idea of what
same
whiskey
as
should
everyone
taste like.
It's hard of course. People like what they like, you know. I'll be honest with you, a couple of people are in there. Oh no, no. A few guys around the corner said to me, "We just seem to be improving in quality."
Well, I know like Macallan would subsidise a lot of bodegas.
But it's what it is. It's what it is.
Do you ever go to, was it Bodegas Tradicional?
yeah, we were there. No, it is quite a few years ago, but
That's true.
I want to get get back to her.
I mean, their stuff's just,
Yeah, but I mean,
like
the thing
for,
is,
you can buy, spend 25 quid on a
you do
bottle
know
of that stuff. and it's
women
one of the
actually have about
nicest
30% more
things.
taste receptors than men.
That's what I'm saying about the scale, because I'm
Yeah.
These little tiny producers that have two
Well, right, I've said it to you. Oh, so for a
Funny,
suggestion.
I
For a
work with this
suggestion.
Chinese
Before you know it,
importer,
you'll be naked and eating an onion.
He's like, it's China, so it's very mass market, but he's obsessed with Amontillado cask. Amontillado.
Don't even start.
Just loves Amontillado, and again, I think it's because it kind of fits with the Baiju
I have a bottle over here for us to
palette, which is that kind of.
Because I didn't think anybody would buy
People
it.
think they think what Chinese want is like sweeter.
Oh, there's another one
styles of
coming.
whiskey, but it's not at all.
There's
They
another
don't
two
drink
after that.
sort of stuff themselves. Like Baiju is really weird.
Three after that, son. Oh, don't worry, I look after you. I make sure you get value for money.
We're having to get the bomb for some.
back them up. Back for yourself.
We don't have a train service
Yeah.
to bomb.
Get a taxi for Bounty. You enjoying yourself? She seems to be enjoying herself too.
Just drink every one apart from that last one.
No, she said she didn't like
I
it.
got one.
Oh,
Well,
no,
she seems to be doing a
they're
bit of
into it. I mean, like people used to make fun of them for
She
like
seems to be doing a brave job
stuff
of
with
it.
these expensive wines and stuff. But I mean,
When you go into our
in the day, their palates are becoming
top shelf,
sophisticated.
top shelf's hers and the bottom shelf's mine. She's many gin that I have whiskey. Like I'm not a collector like some of the guys in here.
No.
I'm just a casual drinker.
You seem to be doing semi-pro at the minute. But no,
That's
that's
not 15-year-old bush. What you're talking about last weekend?
everybody's saying the same
You
thing.
could be a fucking.
I know.
Don't rap for Amazon.
I have a
Every
bottle.
time you pull up a bottle up, get that to Amazon.
I have a bottle over here, maybe, so everybody can try it.
Have you? I haven't tried. I don't eat rice. I tried yesterday.
Well, Billy has. I have a bottle here for everybody to try.
Good.
I don't know, I haven't tried it yet.
Tried it.
Kit Charles?
What are we on?
Well, we're not on.
Are you going back over to Isla for the festival, or
Sorry?
are you going over to Fish Isla to the festival, or no? I've got a. I don't know if you're interested. I've got a guy with a boat who might go over for one day if you want to. You're interested?
Give me an idea of time.
This is Isla.
This is at the minute. This is when I make the money, Sam. So basically, I don't have an awful lot of free time at the minute. But if you're going,
This one, yeah. So this guy is one of those Red Bay boat fella, but the guy who has it, he's like he has to pay for fuel to go over, and 'cause it's just so. I mean, I'm not going to use Compare Express or anything. It's just too.
but I'd love to go over. But I just need dates
Yeah, I'll give you
nailed
a
down.
date. I think we'll go over for my thinking is we'll go over for the Artbeg Day.
Yeah. Sounds like fun. But let me know. Listen, anything you want to do, you just let me know because I've
No,
been
definitely.
working.
I'd love to have you on there just because I know you're.
I'd love to work with you more and more. That's the truth. You know, I mean, I'm saying to all these guys.
So be like,
In terms of whiskey guys,
Yeah.
you're about the most knowledgeable guy I know. That's the truth. In terms of, I know loads of people that are doing stuff, and
Thanks.
all the stuff that you do. I mean, this is fucking awesome.
Thank you very much.
really
I
is.
genuinely, I really appreciate that.
Did you get one of these? All right, anybody not got a drink for the next one? Who's not got a drink?
Anyone not gonna drink?
Next one up. Sam, take it away.
So you've done you're around the corner and you're in Isla now. Isla.
Queen of the Hebrides.
Isla.
Shush.
That's it. In the ashtray. So it's not. So it's. I mean, so again, this is a look at it. It's a sherry cask. Isla. Comes from the biggest distillery on Isla, which is Colilla, and 58.4%. I don't know. I mean, like, again, it's Isla's the one
Beautiful.
to finish on. Has everyone actually, like, does anyone not like Isla whiskey? Does anyone like not like peated whiskey? Everyone, you love it? Yeah. I mean, technically, when you get people who are into whiskey, it's gorgeous, yeah. It's just earthy. I mean, like, peat's, you know, in French wine, they talk about terroir. Like, peat is just the terroir of whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very dependent on where the peat comes from. So Isla vegetation is what makes Isla whiskey taste the way it does. So people drink it and they taste like things like iodine and seaweed and stuff like that. That's because that's what the peat's made out of. Whiskey, and Marty and I were talking before you guys came in about how peaty whiskey's getting. Like, even in the time I've worked in this industry, whiskey's getting so much peatier. So like, even back in the day, Lefroy used to be what, like 30 ppm or something?
Yeah.
And now, like, you know, they're doing stuff that's like 120 ppm and upwards. Like, the peat component of whiskey, it's just the way, obviously they dry the barley using the peat fires in the kilns. So it was just a means to an end. But again, depending on where the peat comes from, it's going to have an effect on the flavor of the whiskey. Like, again, it's an acquired taste, but people's palates for peat, I think, are going up. For me, this is a good amount of it.
Is it all really? Is it a true smoke? You know, the same way you get fake barbecue.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah,
thinking
yes
of that
and no.
liquid smoke you buy in the supermarket? No,
Yes.
no, Stacey, no.
I don't mean for this one. I mean in general. I don't mean for this. I mean for.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, yes and no. It's all natural peat flavoring. Now, like, peat is, if you get like peat, depending on where it comes from, peat can be. It can give off a lot of smoke, but not a lot of heat. And some peat can give a lot of heat and not a lot of smoke, or turf. And I mean, what they're doing is they are looking to get the flavor of the peat. Because it's you can't homogenize peat. It's not a homogenized flavor, so it really depends on things. So they're trying to get it so that there's a lot of smoke coming off it to get a lot of that flavor coming through. But I mean, it's all natural product. But again, it's just really how much you don't need. Whiskey doesn't have to be that peaty.
Don't hear. You can't. Here, what are you doing? What are you doing?
That's not
doing?
peat. That's wood.
That's from there. That's the peat.
This is
You
the
can't
peat.
do that. No, stop that.
This is
Behave,
the peat.
behave.
So you can do this. This is actually peat incense. So you can burn this one.
Yeah.
This is really. But I mean, it just. I only did this because.
I just thought the smell would be nice, but Marty's.
No. In case there's
Lighten
smoke
bits of
all
wood, so
around.
that'll just set the place on fire.
Is that what it's not what it's there for?
But yes, so it really depends. I know you're asking a very simple question. Like, it is, yeah, it's all natural flavor, but I mean, peat is, like, it just really depends on where it comes from and what style of peat. Like, you get into whether, like, I mean, I think Isla's a ombotrophic bog. It's a blanket bog, so it's, you know, all the moisture comes from above.
Yeah.
And all the nutrients come from above. Whereas, like, if you go to the Sperrins, it's a minor tropic or raised bog. So exactly. So it's just maybe a
There
different.
was definitely one we smelled, and it smelled so fakely peated.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. Like,
Well,
whereas-
no, I think maybe what you're thinking of is there's a lot of guys, and there's a few guys in Ireland doing this. And what they've done is they've bought an ex-Lefroy cask and then finished the whiskey in the ex-Lefroy cask. And to me, the best analogy I can get for that is it's a bit like orange cordial versus pure orange. You know, like freshly squeezed oranges taste one way. If you buy Kiora, it doesn't taste like freshly squeezed orange. It says it kind of does, but it's not. I mean, I love what Dunvilles do, everything they do, except the Three Crowns peat. And I know loads of guys love it. I just don't think it really works. It doesn't work. I don't really like it because it kind of tastes like this is the whiskey and there's kind of like a bit of a weird finish to it, and what you're thinking about is that cask finishing, and I agree with you. Most of the time, it doesn't really work. So occasionally, it does, but most of the time, it doesn't. So yeah, it's that's what you're talking about in terms of the peat. There is Greta Thunberg has got fed up with peat. Yes, she's going to be protesting outside peat, and there is the Scottish.
I think Pete had his wicked way with her.
Eurovision tonight.
Oh, sorry, should I not say that?
No,
Sorry.
that's a terrible thing to say. But the thing is, there is this thing about environmentally friendly peat, and they're talking about using biochar and all this kind of stuff to sort of smoke it. And to be honest, if cutting peat is done right, it's perfectly environmentally sustainable.
Because it's not actually, because it's not the cutting of the peat or the extracting of the peat that's the problem. It's not replacing the sphagnum moss that's above it.
You know, you can basically take off the moss, roll it back, cut away, and then put it back again, and you're not really releasing any amount. And to be honest, the amount of peat, I mean, what is it in terms of tonnage? What is it in peat that they use every year?
Well, in whiskey, I
mean, it's minuscule.
But it would be minuscule. Yeah.
It's minuscule. Well, the other thing, I mean, if you go to pretty much any garden centre around here, they'll sell you peat compost.
Yes, that's the thing. That's where it's
Yeah,
getting
and that's where that's where it's heavily used.
Ford and Mona gone, had to go because they were burning peat.
Yeah.
Peat from garden centres.
Peat from garden centres.
Needs to be removed.
So actually, the Scotch whisky industry uses, you know, I know this sounds a lot. If you were trying to carry it, a couple of thousand tonne is probably quite a lot, but that's probably all they use. You know, but that's it. You know, it's you know, a minuscule amount, and to try and take away that from Scotland or Irish whiskey or world whiskey is a bit of a crime, in my opinion. When
The whiskey itself should have that protected status that it can use that, you know.
yeah,
The European Union shouldn't be able to say Irish whiskey can't use peat.
it's not, no, Scotland's not anymore. Oh Jesus! Oh no! Oh no! Andy! Brexit! Come on. You've actually stirred such a hornet's nest that Justin has actually got up out of his seat. That's how bad this is.
Well, is there, I understand the question from the point of view, go back to wine, and I wonder is there a whiskey equivalent of this? That in wine, the cut cost down,
Yeah.
you use oak barrels,
Yeah.
and there's different oak barrels that you can use to finish
Yeah.
the wine in, and they cost, depending where the barrels come from, depends on the price of the barrels. And a way of making that cheaper is you use oak chips, which is like a big tea bag
Yeah.
full of the
Yeah, of course,
chippings the
of
oak.
course.
And it gives you the oak flavours, but the confected bit of that is actually using vanilla essence.
Yeah.
Adding it to, and now I don't think it's used really very much these days, but certainly in the past it would have been.
Yeah.
So that's quite a fake thing. And is
Well, we'll put it
there a
this
similar
at
thing
the minute.
an essence of
So some of the Diageo mainly, as far as I know, are looking at using biochar, which is a kind of carbon, you know, like to get those oak, you know, that peaty flavour. But
sort of like filtering through charcoal.
no. It's kind of a thing to smoke, because you have to smoke the malt to get it to carry through. And to be honest, I cannot see what the Scotch whisky industry are going to replace it with, because as Sam says, the peat does lend a terroir to the whole thing, and there's different types of peat, and there's different types of peat used, and so if it's done right, as long as you roll back the sphagnum moss, cut the peat from there, and roll it back again, it's not actually doing that much damage.
I have to admit, I'm completely sort of ununderstanding of this whole process, because I thought the likes of Bushmans got its sort of heatiness from
Bushmills don't use peat, Johnny. Bushmills don't use peat.
But I thought it was from the river, hence why the
No, the water's not that important, to be honest. The water's not that important. But the thing is, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, I pointed this out to someone the other day. They're carrying out an environmental assessment of Belfast Port to make sure the coaches meet the environmental standard to which the cruise ships aspire to. Okay? Do you know how much diesel a cruise ship uses when it's sailing for one day? For one day at sea, how much?
probably measured in tons rather than litres.
And they're killing all the birds.
How much? How much? Give me an idea. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do it in tons. We'll do it in tons. We'll do it in tons of diesel.
Per day.
Per day.
400. 500.
250 tonne of diesel a day they burn.
Oh.
Right?
Probably not even what we would call diesel, it would be a thicker oil-based thing.
Yeah.
No DPS.
Within the 12 to 25 litres, they have to use
Or,
those.
what's our blue?
Once you get to 25 litres, they can burn. Can I
Probably
go
have a
back
light.
to whiskey? Right?
DPL blue.
Burn ours, this stuff once they're offshore.
So ladies and
Right, so hang on. Frank's got a question. What is it?
I won't sell to you. I'll see it there.
Bill's purchase of Ard's malting is for the whiskey industry?
Probably quite important in some regards. I think.
Sorry, what was the question?
How important is Ecklandville's purchase of Ard's maltings?
Okay.
I think it's quite important because it means there's a bit more local control over malting. It all depends who's going to buy it. You know, but the thing is, if they're going to do it locally.
Well, they've obviously got it for themselves.
Oh no, but that's
So
fine.
They've got it for all their dum-dums for their
Ah, but don't forget, don't
And
forget.
they can sell it to Short Cross and...
But don't forget, they already have 10 years, 11 years now, or a head start of a lot of other people. So the stuff that they're going to be doing now in the maltings is probably a year away from now.
Yeah.
So it's probably 5 years away from anything that's going in the bottle. So
I hope I live to 90 and I can taste all this stuff.
yeah.
Do you know what I would say though? Because like, obviously people come in here and they'd say, oh, like, you know, I've got a passionate theory, and these are all just, this is me shooting from the hip a lot of the time. But I mean, in my opinion, like anyone who's doing anything positive and innovative in the Irish whiskey industry is for the better. But I think you need to be having 1,000. Like, so we give an example, like Highland Park, for example, because they're out in Orkney, they've had to do everything by themselves. So they always did their own maltings and did all their own stuff. Now that's not for everybody, but it worked for Highland Park through the years because it had to work for them, and it's why Highland Park is, for me, it's amazing, like amazing quality stuff and class distillery. So I think that Dunvilles are shouldering a lot of the.
I think
of the innovation in the industry is
superb stuff.
People I know that aren't necessarily big drinkers, not into whiskey, not even necessarily into gin, but they've all been to Ecklandville, they've all been to do the tour, and they're all saying, oh yeah. And we've all said how good it was.
Well, go down there. Go down there. Listen. What do we think of the last whiskey?
I want to say what you told us you shouldn't say.
Wait, what?
I don't like it.
That's okay.
I don't.
I totally agree.
That's fine. That's
I
fine.
don't like peat, and I'm actually drinking that.
Yeah.
I drink it.
Listen. Kalila. Now.
That one's actually really reasonable. It's just an 8-year-old, so I think it's like £70. Yeah.
£70?
Yeah.
Now, just before we go any further, because I have a couple of bottles in here, which Sam has very kindly agreed to let me open in here. By the way, this doesn't happen in most bars. You don't open your own stuff, but Sam has very kindly agreed to let me do it. Okay, so before we do anything, can I just have a wee round of applause for Sam?
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to have you, John.
In terms of a space, in terms of a whiskey space, what he's doing here and what he's going to do in the future is amazing. Okay, it's a superb place. There's a guy not too far away from here, although he's down for a smoke at the minute. And what he said to me was, he says, Marty, this is the best day out I've ever had whiskey-wise. We got to go and see McConnell's, beautiful distillery, and then we got to come here, okay? And he put up 5 beautiful whiskies for us. Absolutely amazing. So, you can.
I'm getting near retirement age now. I've been drinking Irish whiskey, Bush Bills, since I was 18.
Nice.
That's over 100 years ago, whatever. And this is the first time I ever drank Scotch whiskey.
Okay.
And I appreciate the fact that you opened my eyes to Scotch.
Oh, lovely,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Listen.
Yeah.
We acted in this process,
I'll tell you this now, right? I meet lots of people from the whiskey world all over, and I never really set out to go and see people. It's not really in my nature to go knock on people's doors. And there's loads of reviewers out there who knock the doors and say, "Give me a bottle, and I'll review it and give you a good review." Right? There's lots of them. It's not really in my nature to do that. I pretty much pay for everything I drink. So in that regard, there's not that many people whose opinions that I really care that much about. If I'm honest, if I'm being honest. But one guy who I know knows what he's talking about is that man there. He genuinely knows, and he knows it much better than myself or most any other people. So if he tells me something, yeah, I listen. And what he's done here is gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So another one.
My wife will testify. I know feck all about anything else. So.
Could I just say something? Can I thank Martin and Justin for everything that they do?
All right. Okay. Thanks very much. Listen. I've 2 other bottles here. Yeah.
No. We need to switch you off in case the Russian oligarch comes looking for the bottle, don't we? Yeah.
Well, I don't care. Listen. Let me tell you, I'm not. If you're feared of Vladimir Putin, you be feared of Vladimir Putin.
You got that bottle too cheap.
Listen, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping can come to my door anytime, and I'll kick the bollocks off the 2 of them. Don't worry about that. No problem.
All right, we'll leave it running.
Leave it running. Right, we've got two bottles. Where'd my bag go? Dear brother, oh, I have left it about all day. Right.
All good.
Excellent.
Thanks very much.
That one right. By the way,
Nice
Of course. Now, Sam's setting out the glasses here, okay? I bought this because I kind of thought, well, nobody ever really listens to me, right? Yeah. So what I did was, I thought, I'll buy this because nobody ever really listens to me. So I'll buy this because it might be a nice thing for people to try. So I bought the 15-year-old Bushmills, right? He's bought it. You bought it. You bought it. All these people buy the fucking stuff because I tell them to buy it. I know, but I didn't think you'd actually take me up on that. That's what I'm saying.
You sold it twice to me.
Sexy smile, sexy smile.
Right, so we're going to try the Bushmills Cognac cask.
Cognac.
Yeah. It's a 15-year-old that's only released in the UK market, okay? But because we live in Northern Ireland, we get UK and the Irish market as well. So we have the 14 as well.
I don't want to drop this. I don't want to drop this.
Huh?
Hey, don't do that.
Bang!
3 minutes.
Aye. So I don't think anybody fucking ever listened to me, Brendan. That's the truth.
We always listen to you.
We bought Glen Scotia.
Did you? Oh, do you know what I bought the other day? You know what I bought the other day? I bought a 46-year-old Glen Scotia for £2,000. It was £6.5 when it was released, and I bought it for £2,000. No, I'm awful sorry. A couple of people said this to me, and I'm like, no, hang on, no, I can't afford this, you know. But honestly, for £2,000 I bought it. Amazing.